Hello, and welcome to this training, The Resilient Athlete, a parent's guide to cultivating their child's mental strength. I'm Carrie DeCandia, and it is my pleasure to guide you through this training. As a certified mental performance consultant, I've had the unique opportunity to work closely with athletes of all ages and their families, helping them to navigate the challenging yet rewarding world of elite sport. I have seen firsthand both the positive and negative impact that a parent can have on their child's sport experience. The focus of our training today is to provide you as a parent with effective strategies to support your child as they navigate the world of competitive sport. Before we dive in, I want to set some expectations. This training will run about 45 minutes, and I know your time is valuable, so I've designed this to be packed with practical, actionable strategies that you can start using immediately with your athlete. No fluff, just tools that you can take back to your child today. Because let's be honest, the pressures that our kids face in sports today are unlike anything that we've experienced. Many of our athletes practice with joy, but then they freeze up when the lights are on. Others may beat themselves up after a mistake, lose confidence, or even start dreading the game that they used to love. We've all seen it. The tough car rides home, the self-doubt creeping in, or our child questioning if they even want to keep playing. That's why this training matters. The athlete's mental blueprint is grounded in research-backed 4C model of mental toughness, which develops and equips them with the tools that they can carry on for life, all while giving us, as parents, peace of mind knowing how to support them without adding more pressure. Now, regardless of whether your child enrolls in this training, this webinar is packed with information and action items that you can start using immediately. So grab a pen and paper if you haven't already and jot down some key takeaways. And if you miss some, don't worry, we'll send you the link to the recording. All right, so let's talk about why your support is absolutely critical. No matter how good a program or a coach is, your child only spends a very small fraction of their time in training sessions. The majority of their time is spent outside of those practice sessions, at home, in the car, in daily routines, where you have the most influence. And that's why what you say and do matters so much. As parents, we've all felt that tension of wanting to help without pushing too hard. We want to encourage, but we also don't want to add pressure. The truth is, when we reinforce the principles our athletes are learning in moments as simple as a car ride conversation or a quick check-in after practice, that's where these mental toughness skills become habituated. The athlete's mental blueprint gives your athlete proven tools for confidence, focus, and resilience. But it's your understanding and your ongoing support and positive reinforcement that make those tools stick. Your role isn't just supportive, it's transformative. Together, we can help ensure that these lessons aren't just something that they learn once, but something that they carry into every practice, every competition, and life in general. So let's briefly talk about why mental toughness matters so much for your athlete. If you were to ask 10 people to define mental toughness, you'd probably get 10 different answers. The one reason that I love the 4C model is that it's comprehensive, research-backed, and it gives us a clear roadmap for developing resilience, focus, and confidence. But in today's competitive world, talent and physical skill just aren't enough. Mental toughness is what allows athletes to not only handle pressure, but to thrive under it. It helps them to stay composed, bounce back from mistakes, and keep pushing forward even when things get tough. And here's where our role as parents come in. We've all seen the difference in our kids when they feel confident versus when they're doubting themselves. Your support, your words, and your example can either reinforce the lessons that they're learning or unintentionally add more pressure. And the good news is that the skills that your athlete will develop through building mental resilience doesn't just apply to sport. They carry over into school, in friendships, and in life. And as parents, we're not just helping them to perform better in games, we're equipping them to face life with more confidence and resilience. Now let's take a look at the model that this training and the athlete's mental blueprint is built on. It's called the 4C model of mental toughness. And there's 4 components: control, commitment, challenge, and confidence. And these 4 components are the foundation of resilience and high performance. And they're also the areas where athletes most often struggle. Your child may lose focus after a mistake. That's control. Struggle to stay motivated when trainings get tough. That's commitment. See challenges as threats instead of opportunities. That's challenge. Or doubt themselves in pressure moments. That's confidence. The power of the 4C model is that it gives us as parents a clear framework, no more guessing about what our kids need. And it gives your athlete a step-by-step system to actually develop these skills. Throughout this training, we'll dig into each of these components, and I'll share practical ways that you can support your athlete at home. And inside the athlete's mental blueprint, your child will get the full toolkit: lessons, exercises, live coaching, and community. So they're not just hearing about mental toughness, they're practicing it until it sticks. So let's start to break this down. The first C of the 4C model is control. Think of this as how well your athlete can manage their emotions and keep their focus in the chaos of competition. And this isn't just about controlling nerves. It's also about managing frustration after a mistake, calming the adrenaline rush of excitement, and even staying grounded when they're succeeding. Because as parents, we've all seen it: the slammed helmet, the tears after a tough game, or the distracted look when their mind starts spiraling. Those moments aren't about skill, they're about control. And inside the athlete's mental blueprint, your athlete will learn practical tools like breathing techniques, refocus cues, and routines in order to strengthen their ability to stay composed under pressure. And throughout this training today, I'll show you specific ways that you can reinforce those tools at home so control becomes second nature. The second C is commitment, which is your athlete's capacity to set meaningful goals, stay motivated through the plateaus, and keep showing up when it's not easy. And this is what turns intention into consistency. Because we've all seen what shaky commitment looks like: skipped workouts, going through the motions, comparing themselves to teammates, or losing steam after a setback. It's not a character flaw. It is a skill that can be trained. And inside the athlete's mental blueprint, your child will learn a simple, proven system aligning outcome to performance and process goals, building weekly routines, and tracking those small wins that compound. In our live group coaching, we'll help them troubleshoot those dips in motivation and get back on track. Your role: help protect a balanced routine: training, school, rest, and friends. Praise the process they control and celebrate small progress so they see that effort to improvement connection. As parents, we know that consistency beats intensity, and commitment is the muscle that makes that consistency possible. The third C is challenge: how your athlete perceives and responds to obstacles, pressure, and change. Do they see setbacks as threats to avoid or as opportunities to grow? We've all seen our kids in those moments: a tough opponent, a position change, or a slump in performance. Some athletes shut down and get frustrated, while others lean in and rise to the occasion. The difference isn't talent, it is how they view the challenge. Inside the athlete's mental blueprint, your athlete learns to flip challenges into fuel. Through exercises on growth mindset, reframing setbacks, and practicing resilience strategies, they train themselves to approach obstacles with curiosity instead of fear. And for us as parents, we play a big role here too. When we praise effort and learning rather than just results, we send that message that challenges are part of growth. When we share our own struggles and how we overcame them, we model resilience. And together, we help them build a mindset that says pressure isn't something to fear, it is where I grow. And the final C is confidence. Not just believing in physical skills, but trusting their ability to perform, make good decisions, and recover when things don't go perfectly. We've all watched it happen. Your athlete crushes it in practice, then second guesses everything in competition. Or one mistake snowballs into a total collapse. Again, that isn't about talent, it's about confidence. Inside the athlete's mental blueprint, your athlete learns how to deliberately build confidence through preparation routines, tracking progress, visualization, and recognizing their own sources of strength. These aren't just feel-good strategies. They are the same evidence-based tools used by professional Olympic athletes. And your role as a parent is huge here. The words you choose after games, the way you celebrate effort versus outcome, and the consistency of your support can either build your athlete up or slowly chip away at their belief in themselves. As parents, we want our kids to compete with freedom, not fear. And confidence is what makes that possible. Now that we have a foundational understanding of mental toughness and its importance, let's dig into each of these components of the 4C model and how you can specifically help your child start to develop and enhance these skills. So let's go back and start with the first C, control. Again, control is about managing both emotions and concentration. It's how well your athlete handles pressure, keeps their focus on competition, and prevents emotions from taking over. We've all seen it. A meltdown after a call, losing focus after a mistake, or getting so hyped up that they can't settle down and execute. Those moments aren't about their physical skills. They're about their mental skills. They're about control. One of the most effective ways to help your athlete build control is through simple tools like breathing routines, reset cues, and reflection questions after competition. So let's dig into some of those specific strategies that you can use to help your child as they learn to build these new mental skills. So the first area of control is emotional regulation. It is completely natural for emotions to run high in sport. Excitement, disappointment, frustration, you name it. And as parents, one of the most powerful things that we can do is to simply recognize and validate those emotions. Let your athlete know that it's okay to feel upset after a loss or ecstatic after a win. What matters is guiding them and expressing those emotions in a way that doesn't derail their performance. But here's a practical strategy. When you notice your athlete showing a big emotional reaction during competition, make a mental note. Then later, after things have calmed down, ask about it. What triggered that response? How did it affect how they played afterwards? These simple reflection conversations can help them to connect the dots between emotions and performance. This kind of awareness is foundation of emotional control. The more that they understand the connection, the easier it becomes to regulate in future high-pressure moments. Now, of course, even with awareness, there's going to be times when your athlete feels frustrated, upset, or too amped up to focus. That is completely normal. What matters is having simple tools to bring their emotions back under control. And so one of the most effective strategies that I encourage my athletes to use is what I call a centering breath. It's very simple. You inhale gently for about 4 seconds, and then you exhale for about 8. The exact count isn't what matters most. The key is to focus on extending that exhale. So research has shown that when we lengthen the exhale compared to the inhale, it sends a signal to the body to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, the part of our physiology responsible for calming us down and regaining balance. In other words, a longer exhale literally tells the body it's safe to settle. Another option is a quick mindfulness reset. Something as simple as noticing 3 things around them or feeling their feet on the ground. Inside their training, your athlete will be introduced to a variety of these strategies and practice using them in high-pressure situations. But even at home, you can encourage them to pause, take a centering breath, and reset when emotions are running high. The goal isn't to eliminate the emotions. It's to help your athlete to manage them in a way that keeps them performing at their best. The second part of control is maintaining focus. And distractions are everywhere. It could be the crowd, the referee, an opponent, or even their own thoughts. Have you ever watched your child start out completely locked in, and then one bad call or one mistake suddenly throws them off? that shift isn't about their physical skill, it's about their ability to focus. The ability to reset and refocus is one of the biggest differences between athletes who just practice well and those who perform well under pressure. One way that you can support your athlete is by normalizing distractions. For example, in practice, play music while they're training, create little interruptions so they can practice staying locked in, and then afterwards ask them, what distracted you most? How did it affect you? What could you do differently next time? That awareness builds their ability to notice and redirect their attention in competition. Another powerful strategy is helping them to build consistent routines. A pregame routine, even something as simple as visualization, stretching, or listening to their favorite playlist, helps athletes to feel grounded and confident. The key here is not to prescribe a routine for them, but to discuss with your child what helps them to feel most focused and ready, and then support them in establishing that pattern. Now, your athlete will learn additional focusing strategies in their training, but at home, you can reinforce this by encouraging them to experiment with routines and reflection. Again, the goal isn't to block out distractions. It's to help your athlete to identify what the potential distractions are, to stay grounded when those internal or external cues occur, and then to bring their attention back to what matters the most in the moment. Let me share a quick story. So I had worked with a young tennis player who really struggled with her temper. Every missed shot felt like a catastrophe, and one mistake often ruined the rest of her match. So we started working on simple resets, focused breathing, positive self-talk. But the turning point came when her parents got involved. Instead of just commenting on her technique, they began reminding her of those reset tools during practice, and just as importantly, reinforcing them at home. The result? Well, she became more composed, steadier under pressure, and her performance improved because she could recover quickly from mistakes. The takeaway here is this. When parents reinforce the mental skills outside of competition, those skills become habits more quickly. That's the power of your role in this process. Now, the last piece of control I want to highlight is autonomy. So giving your athlete some ownership in their sport. When athletes feel like every decision is made for them, they often feel less in control and more pressured. But when they have a voice, even in small ways, their sense of ownership and confidence grows. That doesn't mean stepping back completely or letting them call all the shots. It could be as simple as asking, do you want to do your recovery before or after dinner? Or which part of your warm-up helps you to feel most ready? These small choices send a big message. You have a say in how you approach your sport. And so as parents, we know how much better our kids respond when they feel heard. Encouraging autonomy doesn't just build their sense of control on the field, it also teaches them responsibility, decision-making, and self-trust off the field. So to quickly recap, control is about helping your child manage emotions and maintain focus under pressure. The 4 simple ways that you can support that is to validate their emotions instead of dismissing them, reinforcing reset tools like breathing and mindfulness, establish routines that create stability and focus, and encouraging autonomy by giving them small choices. When these strategies become part of everyday life, your athlete starts to build the ability to stay composed no matter what is happening around them. Now let's move on to the second C, commitment, which is all about your athlete's ability to stay motivated, stick to their goals, and push through when things get difficult. So think about your child for a moment. Have you ever noticed them start the season strong, only to lose steam when the excitement wears off? Or maybe they light up at the idea of a big goal, but then they struggle with the daily work it takes to get there. That is where commitment comes in. Commitment isn't just about talent or even effort in the moments. It's about consistency. It's about showing up day after day, especially when the motivation dips. And as parents, we play a huge role here. Our encouragement, the way that we help protect balance in their routine, how we celebrate progress can either fuel their commitment or chip away at it. So let's take a look at some tools that you can use to support your child by helping them to set meaningful goals, create consistent routines, and bounce back from setbacks. So the first tool is goal setting. Now, goal setting is an incredibly powerful skill, and in fact is the most widely researched and validated mental skill that there is, hands down. But goal setting is not just about writing down a dream. It's about creating a clear path that helps your athlete stay motivated day to day. Now, creating that path encompasses three different types of goals: outcome, performance, and process goals. So outcome goals serve as the overarching objectives. They provide your child with long-term motivation, a clear vision of what they hope to achieve. These are often the kind of big dream achievements that athletes set their sights on, like winning a championship or receiving a scholarship. Performance goals, on the other hand, are more specific and measurable. Think of these as like the stepping stones toward achieving the outcome goals and should be set for both long and short-term timeframes. These might include things like improving a personal best time in a race or increasing their serving percentage or batting average. You can also think about these as your more SMART goals. Finally, process goals are the most immediate and controllable aspects of an athlete's routine. These are the daily and weekly behaviors and actions that are entirely within their control, and they are critical in moving them towards their performance goals. Examples can include things like doing X number of minutes of Zone 2 endurance training, taking 30 free throws after practice 4 days per week, doing 3 strength workouts per week, and so on. It is these process goals that should be tracked regularly because they lay the foundation for those performance milestones and ultimately their outcome goals. By focusing on and consistently executing process goals and seeing the improvements in their performance goals, athletes are much more likely to stay committed and motivated to their larger vision. And here's where you come in. As parents, we can keep their eyes on the process. Celebrate the daily wins, not just the end results. That is what keeps that commitment alive. Now, the second part of commitment is consistency. And consistency comes from routine. Have you ever noticed how much smoother things go when your child has a rhythm to their week? A routine helps them to stay on track even when motivation dips. But here's the key. A routine doesn't mean their schedule should be all work and no play. In fact, balance is crucial. A well-rounded routine includes training, rest, schoolwork, social time, and recovery. That balance not only protects against burnout, but also keeps them motivated and enjoying their sport. It also safeguards something really important, their athletic identity. When kids define themselves only by their sport, they tend to put extra pressure on themselves, which can hurt their confidence and their performance. A balanced routine helps remind them that they are more than just athletes. And as parents, our role is to help protect that balance. Encouraging healthy structure while making space for fun, friendships, and downtime gives your child the consistency that they need to stay committed for the long haul. Now, the third part of commitment is learning how to handle setbacks. Because in sport, well, setbacks aren't optional. They're inevitable. We've all seen it. Your child comes home frustrated after a bad game, upset after losing, or discouraged because progress feels slow. In those moments, what matters most is how they respond and how we respond as parents. The key here is to help them to view setbacks as opportunities to learn and grow, not as failures. Progress in sport isn't linear. It's not a straight line. It's full of ups and downs. And so one simple strategy is to share stories of athletes who overcame challenges, whether it's a pro athlete that they admire, or maybe even your own experience pushing through a tough situation. It normalizes struggle as part of the journey. And you don't need to solve the setback for them. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is listen, acknowledge how they feel, and remind them that one game, one bad day, or one mistake doesn't define their entire sport experience. Now, your involvement in your athlete's commitment is crucial, but it's also one of the trickiest parts of being a sport parent. We've all wrestled with, am I pushing too hard? Am I not pushing enough? Am I saying the right things after the game? That balance isn't easy. And so here's a few guidelines that may help. 1, be supportive, not overbearing. Encourage them, but let them own their journey. 2, celebrate effort, not just results. This reinforces process and keeps motivation alive. 3, help them through setbacks, but don't fix everything for them. Struggle is part of building resilience. The truth is, your role isn't to have all the answers. It's to provide steady support and perspective. And when your child knows that you're in their corner, win or lose, it strengthens their commitment to stick with the process. Let me give you a quick example. So I worked with a young swimmer who was really struggling to stay motivated. She had big dreams, competing at a Division I level, but the day-to-day grind was wearing her down. So we broke her goals into smaller steps, performance targets that she could measure, daily process goals that she could track. And then her parents got involved by helping her to celebrate those small wins. Things like dropping a second off of her time or hitting her weekly practice goals. Now here's why that works. Neuroscience research shows us that every time that we recognize progress, even a tiny improvement, the brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter that's tied to motivation and reward. That dopamine hit doesn't just feel good. It reinforces the behavior and makes us want to keep going. And tracking small wins is like building a feedback loop of motivation. And for this swimmer, that shift made all the difference. Instead of feeling like her dream was so far away, she could actually see her progress. Each small win fueled her motivation, and over time, her commitment grew stronger than ever. And so here's the takeaway. When parents help highlight and celebrate progress, they're not just encouraging their child. They're literally rewiring their brain to stay motivated. All right, let's now take a look at the third C, which is challenge. How your athlete perceives and responds to obstacles, pressure, and change. So think about your child. When things get tough, do they see it as a threat, something to fear or avoid? Or do they see it as an opportunity to grow? That mindset makes all the difference. Athletes who view challenges as threats often play tight, they second guess themselves, or they avoid risk altogether. But athletes who see challenges as opportunities to lean in, compete with energy, they take risks, and they bounce back faster from setbacks. As parents, we play a huge role in shaping this perspective. The way that we talk about tough situations, the stories we share, even the effort we choose to praise can help our athletes see that challenges aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones. So let's now look at how we as parents can help to build this mindset in our child. So one of the most powerful ways to help your athlete embrace challenges by fostering a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that skills and abilities can be developed through effort, practice, and learning. Its opposite, a fixed mindset, is the belief that ability is set, that you either have it or you don't. And that belief shapes how athletes respond to challenges. Athletes with a fixed mindset often avoid risks. They shut down after mistakes, or they compare themselves constantly. Athletes with a growth mindset lean into challenges. They see effort as the path to improvement, and they use setbacks as feedback to get better. As parents, we can nurture this mindset in simple ways. We can praise their effort and strategies, not just the outcomes. So for example, I love how focused you stayed on that play, instead of, you're so talented. Encourage them to ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of, why did I fail? Share your own experiences of learning something hard so they can see that growth is possible at any age. When we model a growth mindset ourselves, showing that we value learning over perfection, our kids begin to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to grow. The next way we can help athletes embrace challenges is through the kind of feedback that we give. As parents, our words carry a lot of weight, more than we sometimes realize. So here's a few simple guidelines to consider. 1, lead with positives. Research shows that it takes about 3 positive comments to offset 1 negative one. So our kids already have a strong inner critic. They don't need us to pile on. 2, be specific. Instead of, good job, try, I love how you kept hustling after that mistake. Or, your focus on defense really stood out today. Specific praise builds awareness of what's working. 3, choose your timing. Right after a game is usually the worst time for feedback. The best thing that you can say in that moment is, I loved watching you play. Let them start the conversation when they're ready. When we do give constructive feedback, keep it balanced and actionable. For example, I saw you get frustrated after that turnover. What could you try next time to reset? This approach shows them that feedback is about learning, not judgment. The way that we talk to our child after games can either chip away at their confidence or help them to see challenges as part of the growth process. As a parent to 2 children playing in various sports, I can tell you that this one strategy has completely changed how my son has interacted with me both after a game and on the car ride home. Now, here's another important piece of challenge: encouraging your athlete to take calculated risks. Think about your child. Do they sometimes play it safe because they don't want to make a mistake? That's normal. But if they never step outside of their comfort zone, they'll never discover their full potential. Growth only happens when athletes push beyond what feels comfortable. And that might mean trying a new technique in practice, going for a tougher skill in competition, or competing at a higher level. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, they grow. And as parents, our role is to support that process. Instead of stepping in with criticism when a risk doesn't go well, we can ask questions like, what did you learn from that? Or what would you try differently next time? This helps them see mistakes as feedback, not failure. And the key is to separate performance from identity. If their self-worth is tied only to winning, risks feel too dangerous. But when they know that you value effort, learning, and resilience, they become more free to take chances. And that is where the real growth happens. The last piece of challenge is about the environment at home. Athletes need to know that challenges aren't something to fear or hide. They're a normal, expected part of growth. And one of the best ways to create this environment is by sharing your own experiences. When you talk about times that you face something difficult, whether in work, parenting, or even your own sport days, and you explain how you work through it, your athlete sees that setbacks are universal and that overcoming them is possible. It can be as simple as saying, I had a tough day at work. Here's how I handled it. Or when I was your age, I struggled with this too, and here's what helped me. That kind of openness models resilience more powerfully than any lecture. And when challenges are discussed openly and positively at home, your child learns that they don't have to fear mistakes or pressure. They see that facing challenges is not only normal, but it's also how we grow stronger, both in sport and in life in general. So let's quickly recap challenge. Helping your athlete embrace challenge means fostering a growth mindset so that they see effort as the path to improvement. Giving balanced feedback that builds on confidence instead of fear. Encouraging calculated risks so they grow outside of their comfort zone. Creating a supportive home environment where challenges are talked about openly. When athletes see challenges as opportunities instead of threats, they compete with more freedom, more resilience, and more joy. And that leads us into the final C, confidence. Because at the end of the day, confidence is what allows athletes to step into those challenges and thrive. It is the difference between playing free and fearless or crumbling under pressure. So I'm going to ask you to think about your child again for just a moment. Have you ever seen them dominate in practice, only to look hesitant and unsure in competition? Or maybe one mistake snowballs into 3 or 4 simply because their confidence took a hit. We have all seen and felt how fragile confidence can be and how powerful it is when it's strong. At its core, confidence is about trusting. Trusting one's skills, preparation, and trusting oneself to handle whatever comes our way. And here's the good news. Confidence isn't fixed. It's built through habits, reflection, and reinforcement. And as parents, we have a huge role in shaping it. The way that we talk to our children, the feedback that we give, and the support that we show can either fuel their belief or quietly chip away at it. So let's take a look at some simple ways and strategies that you can help your child strengthen their confidence and how you can avoid some of the common traps that unintentionally erode it. So one of the first ways to build confidence is by helping your child identify their different sources of confidence. Have you ever noticed how athletes can have a long list of mistakes in their mind, but they struggle to name their strengths? That's normal. Again, our brains are wired to focus on what went wrong more than what went right. But if your child can't clearly identify what makes them confident, it's harder for them to call on that belief in pressure moments. And this is where you can play a huge role. Talk with your child about past successes, even the small wins that they may have overlooked, personal strengths that they bring to their sport, the support system that they can lean on from you, their coaches, their teammates. And these conversations don't need to be formal. It could be as simple as, hey, what part of your game makes you feel the most confident right now? Or, when have you felt your best in competition? The more your child can recognize and articulate these confidence boosters, the easier it becomes for them to access that confidence when they need it most. Another powerful way to build confidence is through preparation and routine. Have you ever noticed how much more confident your child feels after they've prepared well? That's not a coincidence. Preparation gives athletes a sense of certainty, and certainty fuels confidence. So consistent routines, whether it's a pregame warm-up, a mental checklist, or even something small like listening to their favorite playlist, helps athletes to feel grounded and ready. And these routines tell the brain, I've done this before. I know what to do. And this doesn't just apply to sport. Think about in school, when your child studies consistently and feels prepared for a test, their confidence is higher. Same principle applies here. When they've prepared well and they've built that reliable routine, they carry that sense of readiness into competition. Your role as a parent is to support these routines, not by scripting them, but by helping your athlete figure out what works best for them. Simply asking them, what helps you to feel most ready before a game? And then encouraging them to make that routine consistent. When athletes have reliable routines to fall back on, they enter a competition just like an exam that they've studied for, feeling prepared, calm, and confident. Another confidence builder is tracking progress. Have you ever noticed how your child sometimes may get stuck on what's not working and forgets how far they've already come? That's where tracking makes all the difference. When athletes write down or measure their progress, whether it's hitting a new PR, completing their weekly workouts, or seeing their stats improve, they get that tangible reminder that their effort is paying off. And remember what we talked about earlier with the swimmer example. Every time athletes notice those small wins, their brain releases dopamine, that motivation chemical that keeps them engaged. So tracking isn't just about recording progress, it's about reinforcing the effort-progress connection so that their confidence grows stronger over time. And as parents, we can highlight and celebrate those wins with them. It could be as simple as, hey, I noticed how consistent you've been with your extra shots after practice, and that's really paying off. Recognizing progress, no matter how small, is one of the most powerful ways to strengthen your child's confidence. The next way that you can do it is through the use of positive communication and affirmation. So have you ever walked away from a conversation with your child and thought to yourself, well, I obviously said the wrong thing, but I'm not sure why it landed that way? We've all been there. The truth is, the words we choose don't just shape how our kids feel in the moment, they shape what they believe we value. So here's a simple way to think about it. Instead of, did you win? Try, what did you learn today? Instead of, you're so talented, try, I'm proud of how hard you worked. Instead of, Why did you miss that shot? Try, what helped you to stay focused and what can you try next time? Praising effort, focus, improvement tells your athlete, I value your growth more than just the scoreboard. And when they believe that's what matters to you, their confidence grows because they know their worth isn't tied only to winning. As parents, our words are one of the most powerful tools that we have for shaping confidence. So the last confidence tool I want to share is encouraging self-reflection and self-appraisal. As parents, it's tempting to jump in right after a game or a practice and start analyzing. But often, that's the worst time. Emotions are high, and our children may just need some space. The key is to let them lead the timing of that conversation. When they're ready, ask simple, open-ended questions like, what felt good out there today? What's one thing you want to keep improving on? When did you feel most confident during the game? These questions do two things. They help your athlete recognize their strengths, and they show them that they have the power to improve their weaknesses. Over time, that builds a deeper sense of self-trust and confidence. The goal isn't to have all the answers for them. It's to help them to discover that they already have many of the answers inside of themselves. By supporting your athlete in these areas, you're not just helping them to build confidence. You're multiplying the impact of every skill and strategy that they're learning. Your words, your encouragement, and the environment that you create at home carry more weight than any training session or competition. When you remind your child of their strengths, you celebrate their progress, and you give them space to learn from mistakes, you're helping them to believe in themselves at a much deeper level. And here's the truth. Your belief in them often becomes the foundation of their belief in themselves. That's the gift that we as parents get to give, not just for sport, but for life. So as we wrap up this training, let's quickly just pull it all together. So we started with control, emphasizing the importance of emotional regulation and maintaining focus. We discussed techniques like centering breaths and establishing routines to help young athletes manage their emotions and concentration. Then we moved on to commitment, where we highlighted the role of goal setting, fostering a routine, and learning from setbacks. We talked about how you as parents can support your child's dedication and perseverance in their sport. In our discussion on challenge, we focused on fostering a growth mindset, encouraging risk-taking, and learning from failures. We saw how positive reinforcement and constructive feedback plays a vital role in how young athletes perceive and respond to challenges. And finally, we dug into confidence, highlighting the importance of positive communication, tracking progress, and encouraging self-reflection. As parents, our role is to make these principles part of everyday life, in the car rides, in the conversations at home, in the way that we respond to wins and losses. And when we do, we don't just support their mental toughness, we give them the tools that they can use for sport and for life in general. And so as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment and thank you again for investing your time in this training and for the commitment that you're already showing to your child just by being here. Your role in their sport journey is powerful. The way that you support them, encourage them, and respond to both the highs and the lows will shape not just their experience in sport, but who they become. Remember, sport is a marathon, not a sprint. So be patient, be supportive, and most importantly, enjoy the ride with your child. And so if you're wondering how to take the next step in giving your child every advantage, I would love to take just 1 to 2 minutes and share more about the Athlete's Mental Blueprint. So my coaching partner, Richie, and I created this program because for too long, mental skills training was reserved only for professional, Olympic, and Division I athletes. And our mission is to change that. We believe that youth and college athletes deserve the same tools to build resilience, sharpen their focus, and perform at their best when the pressure is on, while still loving the game that they play. And so here's how the program works. Your child will receive on-demand training modules built around the 4C model of mental toughness, plus additional training modules like goal setting, so they can learn step by step at their own pace. They can access this training on the computer, on their tablets, or on their phones. They will also have access to live group coaching calls twice a month where they can get real-time guidance, ask questions, and learn from others walking the same path. They will have access to an exclusive online community where they can connect with peers who are also committed to growing their mental game. They'll also get bonus trainings and resources at no additional cost to support them beyond the core program. And so at the end of the day, this isn't just about better performance. It's about helping your child enjoy their sport again, stay mentally healthy, and build resilience that they'll carry into life. And so if you're ready to give your athlete access to the same mental tools that have helped thousands of elite performers, I'd invite you to join us inside the Athletes 101 Blueprint. You'll get immediate access to everything in this training, the live group coaching calls, and our athlete community. Everything that we've talked about today, control, commitment, challenge, and confidence, is built step by step inside the program. So enrollment is open, and we would love to see you and your athlete inside.